The first thing they tell you is that this place was built to save humanity. But standing here, at the mouth of this bunker, it feels less like salvation and more like the entrance to the most expensive grave mankind has ever dug for itself. 1,000 feet underground, behind steel doors and armed guards, survival is already being rationed. And the most terrifying question isn't whether the world above is gone. It's who was chosen to live, who was chosen to die, and who was chosen to die first so others could feel safe. Because before you ever reach the luxury levels below, before the pools and private theaters and fantasies of rebuilding civilization, there is level 0. And level 0 exists for one reason only: sacrifice. Level 0 is the decontamination zone, sitting roughly 1,020 feet beneath the surface. In nuclear war terms, this is barely underground at all. It's the equivalent of standing outside in a storm holding an umbrella and calling it shelter. This is where armed guards and processing staff are stationed, men and women selected not for wealth or influence, but for what the system politely labels as essential skills. In reality, it means they are the first bodies placed between the fallout and the people who paid to be protected. They wear high-end weapons and tactical gear, but none of it changes the math. Their life expectancy is measured in months, sometimes weeks. The 3-inch thick blast doors look imposing until you realize the guards are standing on the wrong side of them, sealing themselves out so others can feel secure. Their daily existence is a slow death disguised as duty. They process new arrivals through decontamination showers, conduct radiation screenings, and turn away desperate people who didn't make the list. Every face they reject is another reminder that survival here is transactional. Security patrols never stop, even as radiation seeps into their bodies. Shifts are kept short, not out of compassion, but because even the designers of this bunker knew this level is a death sentence with a paycheck. These guards are tasked with defending the entrance against other survivors, other humans, people just as desperate to live. That single responsibility sets the moral tone for everything that follows. At level 0, you are literally fighting other survivors so that far below, the wealthy can swim in underground pools and debate the future of a world that no longer exists. This is where the hierarchy begins, soaked in radiation and blood, and it only grows more unhinged the deeper we go. One level down from the radiation-soaked entrance, the tone shifts from sacrificial chaos to bureaucratic control. Welcome to Level 1, the security and command processing floor, buried roughly 2,530 feet underground. This is where the apocalypse gets middle management. If Level 0 is where people are meant to die quickly, Level 1 is where they are meant to sit, monitor screens, and pretend they are still in charge of something that already failed. Imagine working a 9-to-5, while the world above you has been reduced to ash. That is the quiet tragedy of this level. Level 1 houses military command staff, intelligence officers, and senior security leadership. These are the people tasked with maintaining continuity of government operations, a phrase that sounds impressive until you remember the government they are preserving failed to prevent nuclear war in the first place. Reinforced walls and blast-resistant design give them better odds than the guards above, but only marginally. They are protected just enough to believe they matter, and that belief is dangerous. Their days are spent coordinating external intelligence gathering, which mostly means watching the surface burn through grainy camera feeds, waiting for conditions that never improve. Their responsibilities include managing bunker-wide security protocols, deciding who is disciplined, who is confined, and who is shot for stealing an extra dinner roll. They process incoming data from what remains of the outside world, reports that increasingly communicate nothing more than collapse in different languages. Communication networks with other survival facilities are maintained, not out of hope, but out of habit. Messages are exchanged, strategies discussed, and contingency plans drafted for scenarios that never resolve. The routine itself becomes a coping mechanism, a way to ignore the fact that every metric they monitor is trending toward permanent failure. Rotating shifts keep them functional, but not sane. Day after day, they oversee systems that slowly deteriorate, watching resource levels shrink while authority remains intact only on paper. Level 1 exists to preserve order, yet it cannot preserve meaning. It is the administrative illusion of control in a world that has already slipped beyond it. And as bleak as this sounds, it is still considered an upgrade. Because beneath this layer of hollow authority, we reach the people who actually keep everyone alive. Reality lives 2 levels down, far from the cameras, the command screens, and the illusion of authority. Level 2 sits approximately 3,540 feet underground, and this is where the bunker's survival actually happens. This level is home to the engineers, mechanics, and technicians responsible for power generation, water treatment, and air filtration. In any rational system, these would be the most protected people in the entire facility. Instead, they are placed only 2 floors below the radioactive death zone, a decision that reveals exactly how little long-term thinking went into humanity's last great insurance policy. Power plant operators keep the lights on using systems designed for a 5-year lifespan, now expected to run indefinitely. Water treatment specialists work non-stop to make contaminated sources barely drinkable. Air filtration technicians monitor radiation levels while breathing the worst air quality available inside the bunker. Multiple redundant power sources exist on paper, but in practice they are held together by constant repairs and improvisation. Replacement parts were never stockpiled in sufficient quantities because the assumption was always that society would eventually recover. Level 2 exists in the uncomfortable space between hope and inevitability. The daily routine here is relentless. Every hour is spent preventing total failure. A single malfunction can cascade into catastrophe, turning the bunker into a sealed coffin. These workers perform mechanical maintenance with whatever tools survived the collapse, fabricating parts from scrap, cannibalizing systems meant to serve other functions. They monitor air and water quality while consuming resources that are already degraded at their level. The irony is impossible to ignore. The people most critical to survival are slowly sacrificing their own health so that others can maintain the illusion of comfort deeper underground. Level 2 is the quiet backbone of the entire structure. There are no speeches, no governance debates, no strategic visions of the future. There is only the constant fight to keep machines running one more day. And yet, despite their importance, these workers rank below professionals whose skills have no practical use in a world stripped of its institutions. As we move deeper, the moral imbalance only grows sharper. If Level 2 keeps bodies alive, Level 3 is where humanity tries to pretend it still understands itself. At roughly 4,150 feet underground, this level houses medical professionals, doctors, nurses, laboratory technicians, and biological researchers working in conditions that aim for sterility in a world where contamination is everywhere. Civilization has collapsed, but the rituals of medicine continue, clinging to order as a form of denial. Specialized medical equipment hums behind sealed doors, devices that were never meant to operate without global supply chains. Replacement parts no longer exist. Medications sit on shelves long past their expiration dates, rationed carefully because there will never be more. Radiation sickness is treated with whatever is left, not because it cures, but because doing nothing would be admitting the truth. Every day, patients arrive from Level 0, security personnel slowly dying from exposure, knowing that once they stabilize, they will be sent back up to absorb even more radiation for someone else's safety. Health screenings here are brutally honest in their implications. Survival is measured in how slowly someone is dying. Medical research continues, but its purpose has shifted. It is no longer about breakthroughs or cures, but documentation. Recording how the human body fails under long-term confinement, radiation exposure, and psychological stress. Pharmaceutical supplies are managed with clinical detachment, antibiotics counted pill by pill, while those in the deepest levels quietly hoard reserves for personal use. Level 3 also serves as the memory bank of decline. Medical records catalog not just injuries and illnesses, but the gradual mental unraveling of bunker residents. Anxiety, paranoia, depression, and aggression all rise as the years stretch on, with no end in sight. The doctors know the truth better than anyone. They can extend life, but they cannot restore meaning. And beneath this sterile attempt at care lies another fundamental necessity. Because surviving illness means nothing if there is nothing left to eat. 2. Food is where survival stops being abstract. Level 4, located around 5,560 feet underground, is where humanity's future is reduced to calories, nutrient ratios, and the slow math of depletion. This is the agricultural and food production level, run by specialists who understand that no ideology, no wealth, and no authority can substitute for something to eat. And yet, even here, class distinction refuses to die. Hydroponic farms stretch under artificial lights, growing pale vegetables in carefully controlled environments that are anything but stable. The equipment is aging, held together by improvisation and constant repair. Power fluctuations from level 2 cause lights to flicker, nutrient pumps to fail, and entire crop cycles to be lost overnight. The agricultural planners originally designed these systems to support life for 5 years. Now they are being pushed into year 6, 7, 8, and beyond, stretching supplies thinner with every passing season. Daily work here is a lesson in quiet despair. Food service workers and nutritionists manage storage facilities, watching inventories shrink while knowing that deeper levels maintain secret reserves. Meals are carefully planned, not for enjoyment, but for survival. Balanced diets have long since given way to improvisation. Every plate is a compromise, every recipe a reminder that the margin for error is gone. Different facility levels receive different meals, functional nourishment for workers, indulgence for elites. Even at the end of the world, inequality is preserved on the dinner tray. Seed banks are maintained with almost ceremonial care. Heritage seeds are cataloged, preserved, and rotated, symbols of a future that may never arrive. Agricultural specialists pretend these seeds will one day be planted under open skies, but many understand the truth. These seeds are not a plan. They are hope compressed into a freezer. And as the food supply becomes the most valuable resource in the bunker, the people who produce it remain among the most expendable. Beyond this level lies the illusion of normal family life. Level 5 is where the bunker attempts to recreate normal life, and in doing so, reveals how impossible that goal truly is. Located roughly 6,570 feet underground, this level houses the general population deemed valuable enough to survive, but not wealthy enough to rule. Engineers, teachers, administrators, and their families live here, people who secured their place through professional skills or moderate wealth. They were able to afford survival, just not comfort. This is the bunker's middle class, suspended between utility and disposability. Family housing units line long concrete corridors. They are functional, enclosed spaces designed to hold people indefinitely, a polite way of describing a box where children grow up without ever seeing the sky. Communal areas and recreational facilities exist to maintain morale, but their presence only highlights the absurdity of pretending this is a life rather than a sentence. Ping-pong tables, exercise rooms, and shared lounges become stages for forced normalcy, while the reality of permanent confinement quietly settles in. Daily life here revolves around routine. Parents work in various bunker operations, returning home to reassure children that everything is fine, that this is temporary, that one day they will go outside again. Schools operate with structured curricula, teaching science, history, and mathematics. Teachers explain photosynthesis to students who may never feel sunlight on their skin. History lessons end abruptly because there is no polite way to explain that the story stopped with humanity moving underground forever. Recreation becomes psychological maintenance. games, art programs, and group activities exist not for joy, but to prevent collapse. Social cohesion is actively managed, conflicts mediated before they escalate into violence. Everyone understands that a breakdown here threatens the entire facility. Level 5 is where survival is no longer just physical, but emotional. It is the level where hope is manufactured, rationed, and carefully monitored. And beneath this fragile attempt at family life, the people who physically keep the bunker running live with slightly better tools, but far heavier knowledge. Level 6 sits at approximately 7,580 feet underground, and it is occupied by the people who understand better than anyone else how fragile this entire system truly is. Mechanics, electricians, computer specialists, and technical experts live here, the skilled workforce responsible for fixing what constantly breaks in a structure that was never meant to last forever. Their living conditions are marginally improved, better ventilation, slightly more space. But the real difference is not comfort, it is awareness. These residents have access to workshop areas and equipment storage, spaces that matter more than luxury ever could. Tools are guarded with an intensity usually reserved for weapons, because every broken drill bit, every worn circuit board, is a step closer to irreversible failure. Systems across the bunker were designed with 5-year replacement cycles. Level 6 exists to stretch those 5 years into decades, knowing full well that eventually improvisation will run out. Their daily routine is a cycle of diagnosis and repair. Power fluctuations, air filtration issues, structural stress fractures, and failing digital infrastructure all land here. They perform specialized maintenance using components salvaged from decommissioned systems, dismantling one function to save another. Training becomes a survival strategy. Accountants from higher levels are taught how to hold a wrench. Administrators learn basic circuitry. Everyone knows that eventually the people who truly understand these systems will die, and their knowledge must be transferred before it disappears. There is no illusion of control on Level 6. These workers know that one critical failure they cannot fix means the bunker becomes a sealed tomb. They keep society alive while watching professionals below them enjoy better beds and more status. The irony is not lost on anyone here. Skill keeps the lights on, but wealth decides who sleeps comfortably. And just when the hierarchy starts to feel absurd, it becomes openly delusional. At roughly 8,590 feet underground, Level 7 marks the point where practicality gives way entirely to prestige. This is the professional class quarter, home to lawyers, financial advisors, and business consultants, people whose skills once thrived in a complex economic system that no longer exists. Here, comfort improves noticeably, not because it enhances survival, but because it reflects what these residents were willing and able to pay. Private living quarters and professional meeting spaces give the impression that civilization is merely paused. Conference rooms host discussions about governance, policy, and organizational structure, as if maintaining procedure can resurrect relevance. These residents sincerely believe they are preserving civilizational knowledge, even as that knowledge loses all functional value. Contracts are drafted for a legal system that has collapsed. Accountants balance books for companies that were erased in nuclear fire. Consultants produce efficiency reports while people several levels above fight over food and clean air. Daily life on Level 7 is surreal. Meetings follow formal rules of order. Committees are formed. Motions are debated. Authority is claimed through titles that no longer command anything beyond the walls of a meeting room. Governance structures exist largely to occupy time and reassure participants that they still matter. Meanwhile, the electrician from Level 6 keeps the lights on, and the agricultural specialist from Level 4 determines whether anyone eats tomorrow. The tragedy of Level 7 is not cruelty, but denial. These residents cannot let go of the belief that their social position will matter again. They assume they will one day emerge to rebuild institutions, re-establish markets, and resume careers. They do not yet understand that they are not guardians of the future. They are relics of the past, living comfortably inside a system that no longer needs them. And just below them, that delusion is rewarded with even greater luxury. Level 8 lies between approximately 9,510 and 10,100 feet underground, and it is marketed as an upper-middle-class sanctuary. This is where successful entrepreneurs and senior executives reside, people who believed they had finally secured the highest tier of safety available to them. The accommodations are larger, the amenities more refined, and the atmosphere carefully curated to feel less like confinement and more like inconvenience. In bunker terms, this means your prison cell includes tasteful design, premium materials, and simulated windows displaying images of the outside world. These residents are high earners, not true elites. They paid dearly for access, yet quickly discover they are still riding premium economy in the apocalypse. Recreational facilities, cultural programs, and premium services are designed to maintain morale and preserve the illusion that this situation is temporary. Governance committees meet regularly, planning economic reconstruction with confidence, untouched by the reality that the global economy no longer exists. Daily activities revolve around preserving identity. Educational seminars, curated cultural events, and even wine tastings are held, using limited supplies that grow more precious by the year. Professional networks are maintained with obsessive dedication. Business cards are exchanged. Conversations reference future ventures, future markets, future opportunities. There is a shared assumption that once the surface stabilizes, they will naturally resume their place near the top of society. The delusion at this level is almost charming in its persistence. These residents still believe in social mobility, in merit, in the value of credentials. They do not yet grasp that in this sealed environment, hierarchy is frozen. They are not future leaders. They are well-appointed inmates. Their sanctuary is still a tomb, just one lined with higher thread count sheets that will eventually be repurposed as bandages when medical supplies run out. And beyond this point, wealth begins to reveal its true psychological cost. Level 9 is where wealth stops being symbolic and starts becoming grotesque. Buried between roughly 10,510 and 11,100 feet underground, this level is reserved for millionaires, multimillionaires, and early tech elites who spent vast portions of their net worth to buy what they believed was absolute safety. Here, luxury finally resembles the world that ended. Private suites replace shared living spaces. Gourmet dining replaces rationed meals. Entertainment systems glow with data streams from companies that ceased to exist years ago. These residents paid millions for their place, convinced that money could still bend reality in their favor. Exclusive amenities, private fitness facilities, and curated leisure activities reinforce the idea that they are different, protected, and important. They monitor investment portfolios on screens, watching numbers move even though the markets, the governments, and the legal frameworks that gave those numbers meaning are gone. It is wealth performing for an audience of itself. Daily life here is defined by contradiction. Strategic planning sessions focus on post-apocalyptic reconstruction, dividing imaginary resources and assigning theoretical territories. Power lunches are held over the last remaining delicacies, conversations drifting toward leveraged buyouts of bunker assets that will never be sold. Wellness routines become ritualistic. Yoga classes, meditation sessions, and mindfulness seminars attempt to stabilize minds trapped in a reality where status no longer guarantees control. Psychologically, level 9 is where denial begins to crack. These residents slowly realize they are still not rich enough. There are levels beneath them with even greater protection, even greater privilege. The knowledge eats away at them. They are close to the bottom of the hierarchy, but not at its foundation. Their millions bought comfort, not authority. And as this realization settles in, the bunker descends into even deeper layers of excess, where wealth finally becomes absolute. Level 10 and Level 11 mark the transition from extreme wealth to concentrated power. Buried between roughly 11,500 and 13,000 feet underground, these levels are reserved for the ultra-wealthy tech billionaires, hedge fund managers, and corporate oligarchs who invested tens or hundreds of millions to secure their place. Here, protection is nearly absolute, and luxury is no longer a perk, but an expectation. On level 10, residents enjoy private theaters, spas, and fully personalized living environments. Films play on screens depicting a world that no longer exists, while staff members deliver services with rehearsed professionalism and carefully hidden resentment. The stress these elites experience is not fear of survival, but the discomfort of knowing that someone, somewhere below them, might still be more powerful. Their days revolve around strategic planning for controlling post-apocalyptic society, drafting frameworks for influence while assuming obedience will naturally follow their wealth. Level 11 deepens the illusion. Billionaires here live in private compounds, complete with dedicated medical teams and security forces whose loyalty is enforced by necessity rather than respect. Private elevators descend only one more level, a constant reminder that even here they are not at the top. Board meetings continue, discussing quarterly earnings for corporations reduced to radioactive ash. Constitutions are drafted for nations that will never form. Titles are assigned. Thrones are imagined. Psychologically, these levels are defined by paranoia. Residents understand that the social contract has dissolved. They know the people maintaining their comfort could turn against them if the balance shifts. Power is hoarded, surveillance increases, and trust erodes. The bunker has become a feudal system sealed in concrete, and beneath all of it lies the final level, where power stops pretending and reveals itself in its purest form. Level 12 is the deepest point of the bunker, extending beyond 13,500 feet underground, and it is reserved for the supreme elite. This is not wealth as comfort, or even wealth as power. This is wealth as control. Entry to this level costs billions and requires inclusion in the small, opaque circle that quietly steers global finance, technology, and governance. These are the individuals who did not simply prepare for the end of the world, but who may have helped create the conditions that made it inevitable. Life on level 12 is engineered to resemble paradise. Completely self-contained ecosystems claim to offer unlimited resources, an idea that defies basic physics but survives on the assumption that money can override reality. Private security forces guard this level not just from the outside world, but from the other 11 levels above, populated by people who would gladly overthrow them if given the chance. Every movement is monitored, every interaction is calculated. Power here is absolute, but it is also brittle. Daily activity revolves around governance without accountability. Resource allocation is decided by spreadsheets and algorithms that determine who receives medical care, who gets food, and who is quietly allowed to deteriorate. These elites plan a new world order from deep underground, designing future societies in which they remain permanent rulers, God kings presiding over whatever fragments of humanity survive. They function as a shadow government for human survival, an irony made sharper by the fact that their decisions helped make survival necessary in the first place. And yet, level 12 carries the greatest irony of all. These people have won capitalism so completely that their reward is to be buried deeper than any humans in history. They possess unlimited luxury in a finite system, absolute authority in a world stripped of meaning. They are kings of a concrete tomb, gods of a universe measured in feet of reinforced steel. Their ultimate safety is also their ultimate isolation. When you step back and view the entire structure, the bunker reveals itself as humanity's most honest self-portrait. Even at the end of the world, we recreated inequality. The guard dying of radiation at level 0 protects the billionaire at level 12, who profited from the systems that led to collapse. The farmer at level 4 feeds the lawyer at level 7, drafting contracts for a society that will never need them. We preserved hierarchy, status, and control, even when none of it could save us. The real lesson of this bunker is not about technology or preparedness. It is about priorities. Survival without justice becomes cruelty. Protection without responsibility becomes tyranny. If there is a future lesson buried beneath all this concrete, It is that policy, innovation, and wealth mean nothing without social responsibility. History does not end in fire. It ends in choices. And the most dangerous choice humanity keeps making is believing that safety for a few can ever replace survival for all.